Okay, folks, I had a whole 45-minute to almost an hour conversation with Eric July about all the things that I thought were wrong with his book Isom #1. Not all the things. I mean, there were things that I missed, and if you go to my YouTube Shorts, you'll see that I put in little addendums there to the end of that particular video, the video that I made recapping his and my conversation. But when we got to the end, and maybe it's just because he didn't ask, or I just didn't think of it, or because generally the reason he has people like me on is because he wants to monetize his haters, I never even thought about telling him all of the things that I liked about the book. Because it's not like, the book was all bad. That's something I just definitely can't say about Isom #1. There were things I definitely liked. For example, Cliff Richards does great poses. I think he is kind of a master at physique as far as the comic book forms go. The body shapes that he draws and the poses that he draws them in. When he shows things like Avery, stretching and getting himself ready for a fight. When he shows things like Avery walking out of his ranch, about to go into the city. Those kinds of poses, the physiques that he puts together, I really like his artwork in that sense. I think with regard, there's issues that I have with regards to the backgrounds, but all in all, Cliff Richards strikes me as a very competent artist. Gabe Al-Taib, the coloring work that he does, looks top-notch to me. I mean, the only issue that I had at one point was, of course, the famous truck scene in which you had two trucks that were colored the same, and that led to kind of a little bit of confusion about, hey, what truck did that kid get into? But other than that, I mean, it was solid color work. There wasn't any places where I was looking at it and thinking, oh, well, that wasn't colored properly. And you might look at the color schemes for some of the characters and stuff, things like Alpha Core, and think, well, those uniforms aren't, terribly imaginative, but at least to the extent that they have been colored, they've been colored well. Whether they're splashy or pizzazzy is another thing, but they're at least well colored. The lettering, Eric Weathers does the lettering, and of course, that's always top-notch work. I mean, I've seen him do his work on Cyberfrog Blood Honey, and he's brought the same quality to Isom #1. And Eric July himself is an able writer. You can tell that, I'm not going to call him perfect by any means, but at the same time, the fact that he was able to put together this story and structure it in such a way that the elements of it did come together. Now, I like I've said before, I didn't like some of the direction in which the story went. I think it would have been a more entertaining story if the battle between him and Yaira and his encounter with Alpha Core had extended on beyond where it did. Instead of just circling back and dealing strictly with the interactions with Darren and Santuan. But at the same time, in his structuring it that way, I did feel like it was a properly constructed comic. I didn't feel like, the only subplot that I think may have gone a little bit off the rails was where he went back to Sam at the ranch, and you have kind of a thread with Sam and #1, the kids, who are one of which seems to be more conscientious than the other in terms of their working. And then Sam dealing with an open door at the ranch. That's kind of a dangling thread that's just left out there, that I felt, maybe that could have been addressed before we left the book. But then again, it's still not bad. So the fact that he's able to weave all these different stories through, and that the main story comes together the way it does. I liked these elements of the book, and that's why I will be getting Isom #2. I do want to see where the story goes from here, and I want to see whether the writing and some of the artwork and such improves from here. That's really what I'm going to be looking for, is to see whether or not I can get through the book without running into the kinds of roadblocks that made it possible for me to do, a full 11 videos on this thing. Now, there's going to be about 20 more pages in Isom number 2 than there was in Isom number 1, but that doesn't mean I expect there to be 20% more videos to come out of that. I will hope that I will have fewer videos just because either I'm tired of repeating myself or the work's actually gotten better. And I think there's every indicator that it will, with the exception of him not listening to me in the slightest, I think. that probably wasn't a good sign. But again, the offer's still open before Isom number 2 goes to print. If you want to send a copy my way, and I can get all of my nitpicking out of the way, and you can make the corrections, and that'll just turn it into a much better comic, we can go for that. Hit me up. But other than that, yeah, I didn't want, I kind of regret the fact that when I had him right there, I couldn't tell him that, hey, these were some of the things that I thought were really good. These were some of the things that I think deserve praise, and be able to give him praise at that time. So, anyway, hopefully whatever delays are holding up Isom number 2 at this point, I think there's something having to do with warehouse shenanigans from the city that are holding up his ability to transfer from one warehouse to another, and it's not until that's all settled that he can actually initiate the next campaign. Hopefully those are minor delays that will not hold the book up unduly. So maybe in the next couple of months we will all have copies of Isom number 2 in our hands. We can only hope. I'm Mike Bartica. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I will talk to you later.